Have you ever given someone a reality check? At my fancy private school, everyone drives BMWs and wears designer clothes. But nobody was worse than Grace, whose dad owns some tech company. She treated the cafeteria staff like personal servants and bullied anyone who couldn't afford $500 shoes. I worked part-time at a coffee shop to help my single mom with bills. Grace would come in sometimes, just to mock my green apron and make comments like, "Guess not everyone can afford college without serving others." One day, she demanded a complicated drink and threw a fit when I asked her to repeat the order. She knocked over the drink I made, claiming it was basically poison, and demanded to see my manager. That's when I noticed her Mercedes was parked in a handicap spot. Again. She always did this because her time was too valuable to walk an extra 20 feet. I'd had enough. I smiled sweetly and said, "Of course, let me just call someone to help clean this up." Instead of my manager, I called parking enforcement. Grace spent 15 minutes berating me about customer service while the officer wrote her a $500 ticket. When she finally stormed out, he was waiting. "Excuse me, miss, is this your vehicle?" Her face went white. "I was only here for a minute. This is your third violation this month. We'll have to tow the vehicle." Grace exploded. "Do you know who my father is?" The officer didn't flinch. "The registered owner will need to pay all outstanding fines and fees before the vehicle can be released." She pulled out her credit card, but it declined. Turns out Daddy had finally cut her off after she maxed out 3 cards buying designer bags. Grace called her dad, screaming about how unfair this was. I could hear him yelling through the phone, "You're 20 years old! Time to grow up and get a job!" She looked at me in desperation. "You have to help me. I can't be seen taking the bus." I smiled. "We're actually hiring. The pay isn't great, but you get a free green apron." She burst into tears and ran out. The next day, Grace showed up in normal clothes, driving a used Honda. Turns out her dad had sold her Mercedes to teach her a lesson. She quietly ordered a simple coffee and actually said, "Please." When I handed it to her, she stared at the floor and mumbled, "I'm sorry for before." A week later, Grace started working at the mall food court. The first time I saw her in that orange uniform, she looked like she wanted to die. But something changed after a few months of actual work. She started being nicer to service workers. She stopped bragging about designer labels. She even defended a new cafeteria worker when some rich kids were making fun of her uniform. Last week, Grace got promoted to shift manager. She texted me, "Thanks for the reality check. I needed it." Now whenever rich kids come into my coffee shop acting entitled, I just smile. Nothing humbles someone faster than having their car towed and their credit cards declined in the same day. The best part? Grace's dad came in recently and gave me a $100 tip. He said, "Thanks for teaching my daughter what I couldn't." Grace learned more from one afternoon of public humiliation than she did from 20 years of privilege.